I just stuck a bull. This bull has been sounding gnarly, nasty. On my right, there's two bulls fighting. I can see them going, their bodies moving back and forth between the trees. And then all of a sudden I hear this. There's another bull right there. Walking through his aspens.
I shot him. Did you hear that?
No. Oh. We both just shot the same bull.
I shot him first.
He shot him first. Oh my gosh. What a heck of a pursuit, dude. All freaking day.
When your buddy calls you, says you got a buck down. And what does he got? A buck down.
Look what I found.
What a sweet coos, man. Opening day, heck yeah. Way to go, Steve.
Arizona Archery Club is a premier partner with Bowhunting AZ. When it comes to attention to detail and a fiery passion, Arizona Archery Club brings it all to the table. With all the latest bows and archery equipment, you can demo every single model in person, free of charge in their multiple demo rooms. Walk through the process with an experienced bow tech and see which bow is right for you without the sales pressure. Their indoor archery range offers air-conditioned lanes where you can shoot out to 40 yards. Take this awesome opportunity to hone in your accuracy and technique. When you visit, be sure to mention that you're a listener to the Bowhunting AZ podcast. Let's all support local. Conquering your own dark mountain is no easy task. The backcountry requires grit and determination. Having quality supplements like Dark Mountain's Kodiak pre-workout, whey proteins, and nourishing recovery are all an essential part of your success in the journey to harvest from the land. Dark Mountain is a 2% for conservation company because they know that with a collective effort, we can cherish these resources for a long time to come. Use promo code BowhuntingAZ20 for 20% off your order at darkmountain.com. Remember, luck favors hard work. National Automotive Repair is a locally owned and operated auto repair shop in the heart of Phoenix, Arizona. Jake McLaughlin and his team operate their business with a foundation of honesty, quality, and integrity. From routine oil changes to larger mechanical repairs, National Automotive can solve your issues and have you back in operation. The shop is located right off of I-17 and Thunderbird off Sweetwater Avenue, or call Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 at 602-978-3278. Big Iron & Co. is Arizona's premier pressure washing company. Whether it is concrete and driveway oil spot cleaning, soft cleaning of stucco siding, or cleaning solar panels, Big Iron & Co. offers premium services at the most affordable price guaranteed. Big Iron serves the entire state of Arizona. From the valley to the pines in the north, we've got you covered. Big Iron & Co. was born out of the need for traditional American and family values to become part of business once again. We take pride in our families, we take pride in our homes, and we take pride in our neighbors and community. All Bowhunting AZ podcast listeners will receive 20% off every Big Iron & Co. service. On top of that, any Bowhunting AZ listener who schedules their appointment by August 1st will receive an additional 50% off an exterior window cleaning treatment. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook at Big Iron AZ. Give them a call or text at 480-630-1226 or visit them online at bigironco.com to schedule and experience the best in the desert. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Bowhunting AZ podcast. We're out here today on location at the one and only Arizona Archery Club.
The AAC.
AAC. We've got two special guests here. Of course, I got my co-host, Jake. And
thank you.
And then we've got Ben and Eddie.
They're both employees here, and you guys have been here for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many years now has everybody been here for?
I've been here for about 5 years in total.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
Eddie?
I've been here full time for about 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You've been around.
Yeah,
a lot
I've been
longer than that.
around. Dude.
You're a hangout too
Yeah.
before that, man.
Yeah, dude. Just kicking it after work at the shop until we closed. So
I remember that.
kind
man.
of, yeah, dude. It worked out. So
Yep.
I love
Heck
it,
yeah,
man.
dude.
So Arizona Archery Club is definitely the number one shop in the valley here. If you want to come and get expertise on bow tuning, maintenance, all the newest bows. The greatest thing I think about this shop that sets it apart from all the others is the multiple demo rooms. You can come try any bow. So when all the new bows get released, people just roll in here.
Rolling in. Yeah. When everything gets released, October, November timeframe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People come in, try them out. So
Yep.
honestly, one of the favorite things we offer, just because you don't know the bow that's going to fit you until you try it out. So for sure.
Yep. And you'll do like all the draw weight and all the stuff to their
Everything.
custom
Yep.
Yeah.
build,
Yeah.
right? Because every
Yep.
archer is unique. So
Exactly. Yeah. And we have like a draw board on the wall over there just to kind of get a good basis of where we should start for draw length and all that. But you never know. Every bow's different. Everyone's a little bit different and stuff. So we always go through there and make sure we set it up for each person.
Yeah, you might have a guy that's like, my draw is like 28.5. And then he steps up against the wall and he's like, dude, you're like 27 and a half, bro.
Come on, man.
I'm like, dude, you're not 6'1", you're like 5'9", bro.
You can usually tell. It's the shorter guys. It's the shorter guys.
Why are you talking about Ben like that, dude? Come on.
Yeah, my draw length's 30 inches, but I'm only 5'6". You know what I mean?
your knuckles are dragging on the ground. What the
Exactly.
So in today's episode, the reason why I wanted to get Ben and Eddie on here is just to basically kind of highlight the importance of proper bow maintenance, right? To ensure that you get longevity of your bow, that you're taking the best care of it as much as possible. Some of us are probably rougher on our equipment than others.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that we get the most out of our bow. We want to make sure that it's running smoothly. It's honestly, it's just like a vehicle, right? Like you want to take care of it and make sure that you get the most out of it. So I thought today we'd kind of sit down with the two of you guys and just tee it up for some good questions and kind of get more of your knowledge, because I know that you guys have a ton of experience in there. So
Yeah, dude, like the last thing you want is when you're on a freaking elk hunt that you've waited 8 years, and then all of a sudden you go out there and your freaking string snaps just because you didn't want to go and get your bow checked,
Yeah.
Like,
And we see it year in, year out, just people waiting last minute type thing, or they've been building points and kind of just leaving it for the back burner type thing.
Right.
The best thing, and I always try to tell people this, is try to shoot that bow year round. Try to get arrows down range and stuff, and have that stuff ready, because you never know. Draw a tag, OTC, whatever it is. So
Right.
Yep, absolutely. Do you guys teach string weaving classes in case you need to like thread a tree apart or something?
I'm sure Ben's like he's our shop boy scout.
Yeah,
'cause
I'll always bring string material on hunts. Yeah.
He'll come in over a weekend and be like, "Hey, check out this new knot I learned." Like, bro, why?
You ever woven a string from your beard hair there, dude? That thing's pretty good.
No, but now I have some inspiration. So we'll try it out.
You'll use it for the servings or
Ben's,
something.
Ben's custom bowstrings.
Times are tough. You never know.
You never know, dude. You gotta have it ready.
Ben Gifford string.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah, man.
Let's we'll start this off by talking about like the basics of off-season bow maintenance. So right now it's June. I think it's the last day of June actually, but we're in the middle of the summer, right? There's really no hunts going on. It's kind of, I guess, our quote unquote off season here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. What are some of the essential maintenance tasks that hunters should perform during the quote unquote off season?
As far as maintenance goes, I would say the number one thing that you should not be doing is applying wax too heavily to your strings. We see it all the time. We get bows in that literally you can peel the wax off the string and make like a marble-sized ball out of it.
Dude, I think I might be one of those guys that did that.
It's definitely
don't
got
wanna
its
say
time
nothing,
and its
dude.
place. But that's one of the biggest things I think that people think they need to be doing is waxing their strings constantly.
Right.
That definitely does not improve the life of the strings if it's done in that manner.
Where do you think that idea came from? Like, why do people always feel like they need to wax their strings? You know what I mean?
I think that it's kind of something from a bygone era and
Okay.
different string materials. Definitely benefited from it more so than others. But I also think there's a kind of a limited number of things that a hunter can actually do to maintain their bow, unless they actually do know a lot of the technical sides of things. Another really big one that you should be doing, and this is throughout off-season, throughout the season, is checking the tightness on your screws.
Okay.
Bows produce a lot of vibration, and I think that's one of the things that gets overlooked is checking to see if the modules in your cam are tight, checking to see if the screws on your rest are tight, sight pins and all that stuff get loose, and then next thing you know, you're not shooting where you should be because your rest has shifted or your sight has moved or something like that, or your bow's loud because the mod screws came loose.
Yeah. Almost kind of like off-roading, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
with a vehicle, where like if you go off-road and beat it, like, I mean, you're going to shoot your bow and you're going to beat it.
There's a lot of energy going back into that bow and stuff. So
yeah. So, I mean, you always want to end up retightening your suspension, and that's kind of the same concept it sounds like to me.
Yep.
I would say, yeah, very similar.
That's cool.
I
That's cool.
remember-
I would have never thought of that, So that's cool.
I remember specifically my sight housing. Like there was two like Allen screws right there, and I remember the whole front of my sight housing was loose once and was like rattling, and I was like looked down and I was like, crap.
Dude, it sucks when it happens, man.
But somehow you still shot a 100-yard pin, huh?
I just held over a little bit.
I think in the other hand, though, when we talk about like tightening screws and stuff,
Right.
you can over tighten that stuff.
Definitely.
It happens all the time. Like,
Totally.
and it's hard. Like, we don't have just hardware laying around here. We have
You gotta
certain
order that
things and
in,
stuff.
yeah.
We send people to A's. If we have stuff, we'll put it in there. But some of those screws and all that hardware is almost the same, but at the same time,
Still different, dude. You
still
guys
different. There's a
like
lot
some
of
weird little beveled Torxes and all that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
safety torques,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So get it snug. Don't overdo it. There's certain ones that need Loctite and all that stuff too. Doesn't hurt to put a little dab of Loctite on there, but don't get crazy.
Blue Loctite.
Blue Loctite.
Wait,
red.
You sure you don't want the yellow?
Whoa, what's yellow? I've never
Like
heard of this.
Super glue.
Super more than red?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, stay away from that. Don't
So don't listen to what I
take
just
that
said.
out of the podcast, dude, please.
We'll just we'll give that a little.
Yeah, there you go.
So pretty much, if you got something loose, just bring it in, man. You don't want to break something and
Yep.
be in trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that would suck. You kind of touched on this a little bit of like looking at the screws and stuff and seeing what's loose and everything, but like, what are some of the other components that we can inspect on a bow? As I guess, like strings, cables, cams, limbs, axles. There's a lot of working parts. So, what can we look for, and how can we tell when it's time to take our bow in for a tune-up or maintenance? What are we inspecting exactly? That's kind of a two-part question. But.
On the strings and cables, the biggest thing that gets overlooked is the servings, especially where the cables wrap around the mods and the cam usually attached on each end. Those ones get probably the majority of the wear and tear. If those spread apart to where bare string material is touching the metal, it can definitely eat into that stringer cable and basically end the usefulness of that item. The rest of the string may look good, but those servings, they can get worn pretty quickly. So that'd be the one thing to check for, and that's usually where they wrap around the cam. The center serving is the next one. Center serving is where you knock your arrow. And if that starts to get loose, now you don't have a consistent place from where your arrow launches from each time you shoot.
That makes sense for my arrows,
Now
bro.
it's slipping.
Yeah, dude. That's why
and
you can't hit
moving.
your target.
Shooting like a stormtrooper, are you?
Oh.
So that'd probably be one of the biggest ones to inspect are the strings and cables. Cams, again, the loose screws is probably, again, thing coming to mind, but just try to make sure you clean them up after a hunt. I see all the time, especially the guys that are cruising around on ATVs and throwing up all that dust and caking that stuff in there. And, if you clean that off as you go periodically, it doesn't build up as much, and it's much easier to keep that stuff clean.
Dude, I've been guilty of like
But
when you like go in and you're hunting and like you got to take a breather, right? And like just resting your bow down. I I've actually like set my bow down on the cam, and sometimes I've noticed like the cams will get worn down right on the edges, and so
Yeah.
I'm sure some of those cams can get sharp. You know what I mean? And that can end up cutting a string or serving and all that too.
Definitely. It's usually the bottom one.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, it's usually the bottom
yep.
one.
That's probably why Matthews was like, we need to build a stand for these idiots.
That's honestly my favorite feature from
Yes.
those
Really?
bows, man.
I love that.
Just put that thing down. Don't worry about nothing being in the dirt.
Nothing.
It's right there. It's perfect.
It is, dude.
Yeah, and then you can pick it up and shoot and not have to worry about taking it off and
Yeah, man.
throwing off your shots.
And it's very minuscule as far as weight too. I mean, in my opinion. So
Yeah, honestly. And it's in a good spot. You want that weight a little bit lower.
Right,
So
right.
it helps out.
What about like a D loop? How often would you end up having to like change out a D loop? Because I've seen some where like some of mine, man, those
A little
suckers-
sketchy, dude.
Dude, they look a little ranked, dude. You know what I mean? Like
I used to let them go for a while.
Until what happened, Ben?
Ben's a gambling man.
I let it go too long. And then at a 3D shoot, I ended up
Did you punch your face?
airmailing my bow across the range. And,
Jeez.
Yeah.
that wasn't a good time. Now, anytime I see wear on it, if I'm worried about it at all, if that's a thought in my mind, I'm gonna change it.
Yeah.
Right.
And for the $5 or whatever it is to change it, it's definitely one of those peace of mind things. That's a no brainer. But yeah, D loops they're a critical component. So
But even sometimes you can't see that stuff too. Like I was getting ready for a tournament and I couldn't see it. Everything looked good. And then the sleeve on the outside looked fine, but the threads on the inside of
Inside.
it were gone. So I was over here shooting after work. Russ was watching me go quarter of the way back, smoke myself in the face. And Russ was like, what did you do? I'm like, I don't know. So then I started looking at it and it looks fine, but just those threads on the inside got messed up somehow. So
Just took it.
just took it.
those are some of the
chin.
hardest hits you'll ever take too. Punch yourself.
Oh, dude.
That's like, what's it called when you scope yourself, like with a rifle or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like
The archery version of that.
Oh, yeah.
that was like one time when I had a thumb release or I can't even think of the word now, bro. The hinge release. And,
Oh, yeah.
During my drawback cycle, freaking,
Went off.
it was like just too hot, more
yeah.
or less.
Okay.
Just punched myself right in the eye.
Yeah.
Man. It was like,
yeah, it happens.
oh, man.
Like when people come in here and they want to try like
Wrist
thumb
slap you.
releases and all that. Yeah, wrist slapping too. Try a handheld release and all that. We go through a couple steps before we actually put them on the bow too, just to make sure. Because if you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah.
it's not going to feel good.
Especially if
That's the last thing I want to happen in here is that someone get hurt. So
especially if you're pulling back like 70 pounds or on plus, you know?
Dude, I
But,
pulled
yeah.
back at least like 150, dude.
yeah, the boy sold up, dude.
That boy sold. Don't feed his ego, bro. Come on.
I'm actually backing down on my way. I don't want that anymore. What are some of you were kind of touched on cleaning there, Ben. What are some of the proper cleaning and like, I guess if we need to, lubrication techniques that we can do to keep our bow in top condition?
Like
and then,
WD-40, bro.
if we need to
Pressure washer.
some Pam,
Pressure
spray some Pam on there. If we need to do some of that stuff, what items would we
or
need
just
to
like
do that?
air, you know?
Or is it better just to bring it in and have it done?
Yeah. As far as like lubrication and stuff, there's not too many parts that need lubrication. In fact, one of the most popular arrow rests we sell, the QAD, specifically says on it, do not oil. So that used to be my favorite joke. One of the other techs would get pissed all the time. I say, yeah, I'm just back here oiling up the QADs. But most of the stuff is sealed bearings and lubrication where it's required, typically requires the bow to be taken apart.
Yeah.
And put underneath. There's little rockers the limbs sit on and stuff like that, and that usually gets greased up pretty good. But basically keeping it clean, a wet rag, and just wipe it down when you're done, and try not to put it away wet. If you put it away wet, all the screws, all the steel stuff on there is going to rust. So if you let it dry before, if you get rained on or something during a hunt, try to towel it off and let it air dry before you put it in your case and seal it with all that moisture on the bow so those screws don't get rusty. But otherwise, a couple drops of oil here and there in the cams and stuff like that's not necessarily a bad thing, right where it meets the axle. Just try not to overdo it so it doesn't get a spot where it picks up dirt and dust later on next time you're out hunting.
I think that's the biggest thing that's going to abrade those strings and cables, though, is that fine dirt.
Yeah.
That's why we always tell people don't over wax your strings. Jake.
Dude, I waxed that baby so good. Dude, like a
I
car
think
wash.
you came in
Like
the
a
other day, you're like, oh, where's your wax at? I'm like, you don't need it.
No, I got the new strings.
You
I was
don't
like,
need
and I was telling you, I was like, dude, those strings are pretty bad. You're like, do you want them still? I was like, no, man.
No.
I was like, I think I waxed it as much as I could, man.
I think I saw a PSA behind the counter that said, "Don't sell Jake any more wax."
Yeah, I put his face up there. It's all set, dude.
I don't know.
Everyone in here knows, do not sell this
I
guy.
see some back there, bro.
Yeah, not yours, dude.
That cobalt ice right there.
Cobalt ice.
He's got
That's that good
Mr.
kid.
Miyagi over here. He's wax on, wax off.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that's going to abrade those strings and cables and just wear and tear from shooting and all that. So it's hard to really base longevity with time. It's
Okay.
more just how much you're going to be shooting and all that
Shooting,
too.
yeah.
So, and how much you're going to take care of it, get that dirt off of it as much as you can.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That wax is just going to collect all that dirt and stuff. So, yeah,
There's definitely a time for it too. The wetter environments, things
Right.
like that.
so that'll help repel it and
little bit
not
of
soak
there.
in all that water.
Definitely helps in that kind
Okay.
of stuff. But our state just does not seem to be the place
Oh,
where
man. Every time I
Yeah,
went to hike to hunt,
if
it's
you're
always
getting
pork.
pounded on, like you're going to hike to hunt, yeah. Like,
hike to
every
hunt
time.
last year. That was definitely
Every
a place
year
where
I've
wax
gone,
was
dude.
good.
even
So,
going to like Sunrise and stuff, going to
Yeah,
that tournament
yeah.
up there, we always got rained on. So,
Yeah.
because if it absorbs too much of that water, it's going to slow that bow down, and you'll see it. So it's just something you have to keep an eye on. If you're going to question it and stuff, come in. We'll put it on for you. It's not takes 2 seconds for us to do it.
All right, I'm doing that from now on, bro.
Just come in,
I'm
dude.
just gonna
See
say,
you once
Eddie,
a week.
Big
Like-
Eddie, I want some wax,
No,
baby.
nope. Next.
No.
Wax
You're
me
cut
up.
off, Jake.
Wax me up.
You've been overserved.
Let's kind of roll into like some fine tuning and adjustments. So, like, what kind of fine tuning and adjustments can be made during the off season to kind of improve a bow's performance? When is it not the right time to make major adjustments too? So, like, kind of playing polar opposites there. So, like, all right, you want to do all new strings at this time, but if it's, if you have a tag and you have a hunt, and, I've heard even you guys, I think to me before, have been like, yeah, I don't recommend you change your strings out right now because you got a
Right.
hunt coming up
Yeah.
in like a week or two, so don't do it. So kind of talking about that a little bit. When's the right time to make modifications?
Definitely now would be the time to start doing stuff. If you have a September tag, give yourself any changes you make. I would say give yourself at least like 3 or 4 weeks to get used to those changes. Make sure it doesn't mess with your sight too much. We hear this all the time with poundage. Guys are starting off and they're starting off at a lighter poundage to learn form and learn how to shoot their bows correctly, which is excellent. And then a couple weeks before their hunt, they want to go and jack the weight of their bow up. And that kind of stuff, it takes time to make sure you have time to make sure every one of your sight pins is on the money. Make sure your sight tape, if you're using slider sights, is still correct. So I would say if you have a September tag or anything, now would be the time to start kind of playing with that, and then make sure you have at least a month or two to get used to those changes you've made.
As far as like little dialing in things too, like, dude, there was something as simple as like the other day when I was telling you, I was like, this draw just seems like a little bit long.
Yeah.
And all you ended up doing was just literally shortening my D loop.
Yeah, just by a
And
little
I was
bit.
like, this feels way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think when you came in, it felt long
Right.
and your peep was off.
It was off. Yeah.
Because we typically tie it in, unless you say we're going to tie it in back in the same spot when you brought it in.
Right.
So if that is off, it's going to feel off for everything.
Right.
So it literally super minor, adjust it real quick.
And that'll help you dialed in like completely.
Yeah.
Change it. You know what I mean? So
And it's good to always have someone else look at you too. So even like when we get new bows and stuff, like I know what my draw length is.
right.
But at the same time, if I set up a bow and it could feel a little bit off, Ben, hey, check it out. What does it look like? Shoulders shrunked up, too extended out, stuff like that. So it's always good to have people put eyes and
are
stuff
you
on it.
leaning into it? Are you leaning back on
Yeah.
it? Stuff like that. Yeah. But even then, like, as far as tuning, I mean, something as simple as like, your a limb-driven rest or something like that, or you're talking about your QADs, bro. But as far as even that, I mean, is there something that could end up going off on that, and then now you're way off adjustment, and you guys got to bring it back in here so that you guys can fix it, you know?
Mm-hmm. There's timing and stuff we could do on those limb-driven rests by moving that stuff up and down the limb. On the new Hamsky stuff, they're coming with the little rubber dampeners to kind of take a little bit of that shock out of there too.
Okay.
So that once we set up, we try to take as much of that stretch out of it. But once you start shooting, it's gonna stretch out.
You never know, right?
So and we'll tell people when they come in, hey, expect it. But sometimes we'll come back for that 90-day tune that we offer on a new bow, and it's like a quarter of the way up. I'm like, dude, your rest needs to be down. So there's little things we could do on that stuff, and
cool.
Yeah, there's just keeping an eye on it, but bring it in. We'll help you guys out. It's easy.
We definitely try to educate people too and let them know what typically happens with this particular rest or, but yeah, the limb driven stuff, as far if it comes up a little bit like that, it's super easy on most of them just to pull your cord a little bit tighter, or maybe you have to loosen the clamp to pull your cord. But yeah, definitely stuff like that. That is a change that doesn't really affect your bow's tune or your pins or anything like that, and it definitely helps cleaner arrow flight. So there are definitely changes that can be good to do right before a hunt, but a lot of the stuff I think of like major changes. You guys say changes, and my brain's freaking out. Like, no, don't change it. I just spent 2 hours tuning your bow. Don't change it. But
broadhead tuning,
I remember
bear shaft tuning.
Yeah, all of it.
Put that mic a little closer up to your face there, Ben.
Is that better?
Rise it up a little bit.
Rise it up.
Yeah,
Rise it up.
Now tighten it.
Oh, now I can't see you
You want
guys.
to help him out there, Eddie? Yeah.
Got him.
I remember that you guys saying one of the biggest things you would see people do is they'd go home and their arrow, you know, it'd be the fault of the archer doing like a weird stance or weird break
Grip or something.
But
Probably,
they would end up moving their rest to the left or to the right to compensate, and you're like, no, like,
Yeah, man, yeah.
don't touch your rest.
And to a certain extent, of course, right? So when we tune a bow, we try to get it as close as we can, perfect for specs and stuff, what each manufacturer and what each bow actually likes. But you do have to adjust a little bit. A lot of the times people adjust too much. So it'll come back and I'm like, what'd you do? Like, I don't know.
Why are you like, I feel like victimized right here.
You're right there, dude.
If it's a small adjustment and you see the result you're looking for, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Okay.
If you have to take your arrow rest and crank it way to one side or way to the other side, it's probably something else that's going on.
Jake was just trying to shoot like wanted around a bush with his arrow, man. Curve that arrow.
That's why
around.
earlier I was like,
dude,
can you check my
style.
third axis? Because I think it was like, I'm going, going around a pole, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
We'll sell you some aluminum arrows next and just bend them. That'll do it.
It'll be perfect for you, dude. He's already got you set up, man.
I got you covered. I've been thinking about that.
Yeah,
I knew. I always trusted Ben.
yeah, dude. He's a good guy.
Eddie?
Yeah, he got a little sketchy.
sketchy.
So can you guys kind of break down some of the setup or maintenance for bows that you guys do? So when someone comes in, you get them adjusted for their draw weight, you do their draw length, you guys do cam synchronization in the back,
Yeah.
right? You're pulling the bow down, making sure they're timed properly and stuff. Obviously, I've seen like some of the slow-mo stuff you do with the drop away rests and whatnot. That's
Yeah, what are
pretty
you
cool.
guys using for that, to showcase all that?
Secrets, man. Secrets back there on the high speeds. But yeah, honestly, we charge one price for a tune. Yep. We don't offer like, oh yeah, we'll do a little tune and it's going to cost this much. No. A tune is a tune, $75. We're going to do the whole thing on it,
Honestly,
right?
dude, $75 to get your bow shooting,
Dude,
like good and tuned
money,
up properly.
shooting good.
Yeah,
So
that's worth it.
whole thing, making sure it's making peak weight. That's
Right.
one of the biggest things. So like strings and cables will stretch out. They can still be good. You won't need new strings and cables, but if they stretch to a certain point, we have to tighten that stuff back up.
Right.
So get them in spec where it's supposed to be. Make sure everything's timed for the rest, time for the cams. There's a lot of things that go into that bow. So the biggest thing is like just making sure you're getting it in here to give us enough time to order that stuff. If we need to order strings and cables, right, 10 days to 2 weeks right now.
Yeah, definitely closer to 2 to 3 once hunting season starts.
It gets
I remember,
crazy.
Yeah. I remember it was more like 2 weeks at one point.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's hit 3-4 weeks. Like in like,
especially if you want to get like custom limbs and all that,
Yeah.
dude. Like, yeah, man. You're like,
and it's hard for us to like, I don't want to turn people away, right? I want to set their stuff up. So we're at the mercy of those string builders too. So if you give us enough time to do it, we're gonna do it. And we're gonna make sure it's right.
Ben, you better start growing your beard out so you can start getting those strings made. dude.
I tried to get it down to like here before, but it gets bigger this way first. And I can't handle that.
Shannon, I won't let him. I promise.
You threaten me too much. I'll just shave it all off. You guys will hate me.
Dang it.
I can make a lot of strings with that, though.
Yeah, dude, you'll be set.
Kind of talk a little bit how there's different hacks basically that you can do, and I think I have one that kind of comes into mind. So maybe I'll kind of tee it up for you. Maybe there's some other ones you don't mind sharing, or maybe you'd rather keep them secret.
I mean,
But
I could
there's like
think of one too.
there's like a thing where my draw length is 27 inches, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's my anchor point or what, I would probably shoot better at like 26 and a half. And do you hear of things like that every once in a while, or little things where it's like, all right, let's just make this little fine tune adjustment.
Totally.
And all of a sudden this person's shooting better. Like you had mentioned the D loop. There's one right there too. Like, okay, you felt like it was a little bit too long, so we just adjusted your D loop. Maybe I just need to change my D loop and not my draw length. But,
It could be as small as a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, right? And it's especially with like a handheld or something.
Yeah.
You have to pull through that shot. Well, you want to pull through that shot. If you're punching the trigger, you're punching the trigger, but you want to pull through that shot. And if you're too long, you're not going to be able to pull through it.
Yeah.
So
you're going to be like,
especially with like a hinge,
yeah.
hinge or like a true back tension release, you have to make sure you're not too long, but at the same time, I don't want you scrunched up.
Right.
Especially if you're shooting up and downhill shots. Once we start doing that, that changes a lot of those angles on how your body is too.
or blind.
Or blind, yeah. So, biggest thing, like shooting up and downhill, bend at the waist, try to keep everything centered up how you're supposed to here. That helps out a little bit, but still, if it's too long, it's too long.
So I've heard like little, and I don't know if this is a good thing or not. Maybe that's where you guys come in, but I've heard people say that they'll go and twist the strings.
Couple extra
You know
times.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at that point, though, doesn't that affect like your timing and all that too? And
Seems like it would affect the release of the arrow as well. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think a little bit of everything, but I think Ben probably knows more on that for sure. Just
Definitely used to be a thing. And people still do it, but definitely used to be more common years ago. It was called short stringing a bow.
okay,
So if you take the string and you twist up the string, it doesn't affect the timing of the cams. It affects I should say it doesn't affect the synchronization of the cams. It changes the starting position where those cams are rotating from, and it will shorten up the draw length a little bit. It usually takes quite a few to make a noticeable change. There's a lot of bows now that they're giving you the ability to change your draw length in a 1/4 inch adjustment and things like that.
That's awesome.
Elite's been doing that for a few years now. Some of the Target stuff from Bowtech, you're able to do that, and I think we're going to start seeing that a little more often now too.
That's really cool.
So you don't have to do that. You can keep your cams in their optimal position and not have to mess with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the draw length, I mean, that's huge, and we always measure people to start, but it's not uncommon to go 1/2 inch to a 1 inch one way or the other. Everyone's body is different, and some people like to shoot with their arm, fully extended. Other people like to have a little bit of bend in their arm, and once you kind of find what works for you, we're going to try to make that happen, whatever it takes, whether it's changing mods or changing a D-loop or something. But there's definitely some things to do where you can kind of tweak your draw length to get it at that perfect spot.
Yep.
Is so for me, for instance, and I was showing you that other day. I was like, I'm like double jointing in my elbow, right? So sometimes for me, it's kind of always like I end up kind of twisting my body a little bit instead of like standing straight, like parallel with that bow, kind of more or less. I almost kind of canter my body so that way my elbow isn't like sticking out real bad.
yeah.
And so maybe that might be another little kind of hack thing that goes on,
Yeah, and honestly, you find the way you're going to shoot the bow, right? We can only teach you as much as we can, and you're going to take bits and pieces of everything, right? So if you find something that's going to work, as long as you're consistent with it, you're gonna shoot fine.
I can't say I'm consistent. Come on.
Gotta keep that thing.
Or like, dude, it's gonna be way different when you got a bino harness on sometimes too, right?
Yeah, it could be for sure.
'cause you might have, well, I don't know if anybody else does, but you might have 15s on your chest and you're shooting a bow. You know, like a little tough.
Yeah, you got to get that marsupial on you, dude.
I do.
Keep it nice and tight.
But it's a big old 15, bro, on a short guy.
Definitely got to pay attention if you're going to be wearing a thick jacket in some of those colder areas and things too. Oh, yeah. That's another one. You know, you put some base layers on and then a jacket, and then you go try and pull your bow back, and it's like, man, this thing feels 10 pounds heavier. Definitely changes the game a little bit.
Probably be restricted. You know, you ain't gonna have as much of a shoulder up tight to your chin and all that. You know, so.
Or if you're hunting in a blind and you've never shot from a seated position, that's another one where it's like, you're gonna quickly learn if you're pulling too much weight.
Dude, sitting down and pulling that bow back.
Like we've had people come in
before
here.
You even move.
Yeah, people come in here wearing their camo and stuff, and like,
heck yeah,
we ain't gonna judge them because we know what they're doing. Like that's
you gotta
they're
try
doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it happens all the time, man.
I'll be here tomorrow with my puffies on.
Like, bro, it's 150 now, Steven. Stop. Just call me an hour before you come in and just turn up the AC for you. Like, all right, if you pass out, I got
jacket
you, man.
on. Yeah, man.
We got a frozen summer sausage in the thing over there for you.
We've brought someone back with that before.
Yeah, we saved Russ's life with it, so it'll be fine. We'll
What?
reuse
What
it.
summer sausage? I don't even want to go that.
No, don't. You don't want to, dude. I got video evidence, so it's all right.
Should probably cut that part out.
Talk about that later. That sounds a little weird, man.
Let's talk about the importance of checking and replacing like older, worn out accessories. So, some of these, I know some people that have had bows for years and years and years, and it eventually, obviously, there's going to be a part to where the accessory or a piece of that equipment is no longer going to be able to serve you, no matter how much you want it to. Still, what are you kind of looking for in different accessories and stuff like that, and where might you see weaknesses, or ultimately, how do you know when it's time to let that thing go and get a new one?
I think mostly just a lot of the times back in the day where people had a lot of things against drop away rests and stuff.
Okay.
Just with them failing all the time. Nowadays, it's very, very seldom that it's gonna happen.
Oh, it's kind of like the like the old debate of fixed broadheads versus
or just like
mechanicals,
run a whisker biscuit versus anything. Like whisker biscuit, it's gonna work fine, right?
Right.
But
you're not gonna get as true of a
to get that drop away on it. It's gonna be clean, and we're gonna get it timed perfect. So it definitely helps out. That's one of the things I always tell people after the bow purchase. Spend the money in the rest too,
dude. Like a whisker biscuit, that stuff's gonna wear down too. So your actual like rest of that arrow will eventually start to even drop and sag down. So then that changes your whole freaking sight tape and all that. If you're running a sight tape or your pin, you know what I mean. So all that.
Yeah, and all the new whisker biscuits, like the bristles on the bottom, they're black.
Okay,
so they're a little bit more rigid and stuff. So very important to make sure your cock vein is always facing up. You don't want that vein running into it. Yeah, stop. You child. You child.
What is
you
that?
You could have said your two hen veins face down.
Yeah, hen veins facing down.
The two hen veins facing down. Come on.
So if you're a whisker biscuit shooter and you look at your whisker biscuit and that hole that you put your arrow in looks like an oval, it's time to replace that biscuit. If those bristles look like they're crisscrossing and throwing up gang signs, it's time to replace that biscuit. An insert's $20 to replace your whisker biscuit with. So, there's still, I think, a good argument to be made for the whisker biscuits, guys. But it's definitely no excuse not to change it out if you're spending a whole bunch of money on everything else. Spend the $20 to replace that insert.
Even then, what's another good rest that isn't that much more expensive than a whisker biscuit? You know what I mean?
Hamsky primer.
Yeah,
that's where we go. A lot of Hamsky primers, man. What is that?
Right.
$135? $139?
Something there.
Right around there, like
something 145.
And
great rest.
And now you're stepped up into a whole new level, right?
Yeah.
So
drop away. Good components, limb driven.
Doesn't wear down as much probably as a whisker biscuit,
It's not going to wear down at all.
Okay, there you go.
Just making sure you're keeping an eye on that cord, right? Same thing we were talking before.
Yeah.
If that cord, you start to see that blade come up a little bit, tighten that cord.
Yeah.
So very simple stuff.
Heck yeah. Even like quivers, right? So like sometimes like you'll have a quiver in the hood where like you've been running
In the hood.
in the hood.
South Phoenix.
yeah. Over at the AAC.
Yeah, right.
Jeez. Anyway, in the hood of that quiver, you might have that like that foam, right?
Oh yeah.
Where like the you might have ran a fixed blade broadhead in there, and then maybe you're deciding to change it up, or maybe you had big arrows like FMJs or something like that, and where the arrow goes into the quiver, like clamps into it.
Yep.
Now you want to run like a micro or something like that. So now it ain't gonna sit in there real good. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah, that some quiver manufacturers and stuff have replacement foam and stuff. We've sent people to Michael's or Joann's, whatever it is, right?
Okay.
Get some foam from there,
And
cut
just
it
do
out,
like
put
that.
it in.
Heck yeah. Okay.
The new tight spots are one of my favorites. The new hood on there.
Okay.
Any broadhead will go in there, mechanical. It's not going to open up on you.
Dang,
And
they're-
then the actual diameter of the arrow, you can change how those grippers hold too.
So they're not loyal to a certain hood?
yeah, bro.
They do all the hood.
All the hoods, dude.
Dang.
The 602 all the way to the 928, everything, dude.
All right, now, boy.
520.
Oh, dang. Okay. That's cool. Okay. I wouldn't have ever thought of that, too. You could just go to Joann's, get a bunch of foam,
we
you know?
we sent people over there, but a lot of the newer stuff we could get replacement foam for it. The older stuff, it's kind of hard, man.
Because otherwise, yeah, I mean, dude, the worst thing you want is an arrow falling out of your quiver.
That's like one of my biggest fears
Yeah,
is
man.
to take an arrow to the leg or the thigh because it falls out and
I mean,
then
you
walk right into it.
I've seen it on videos all
Yeah.
the time, you know.
Yeah.
I think like Levi Morgan had once before where
gosh.
he cut his calf and couldn't even finish that hunt the rest of it. That's
That was
tough,
with his
man.
knife, though. He's like skinning it
Oh,
up or
all
something.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
whatever.
Get your stories right,
But I've
dude.
seen other ones, bro. Come on.
No, yeah, you're right, though. Like,
I think the hood's important, but that gripper
Back to the hood.
back to the hood, the gripper that holds the arrow is
Yeah.
definitely where I think you need to pay the most attention on the quiver stuff.
Because those are usually just rubber kind of, aren't they?
Yeah, and just like you said, there's a lot of people switching to micro diameter stuff, and if you've been running standard diameter arrows and then you try to put a micro in it and it's just used to that thicker shaft, it's not going to hold it. So
Yep.
So is there better quivers out there than others that like maybe will accommodate for that?
for sure, yeah. Like those tight spots, you get that adjustment on that gripper. All the ones that the manufacturers make and stuff, they're really nice too. So like the Matthews, the new low pro quivers, all the super light from Hoyt and all that too.
Okay.
They're super slick. So
Heck yeah.
Talking about like storage and kind of environment for our bows, what are some best practices for storing a bow during the off season to protect it from damage and just kind of maintain integrity of that bow? So like, for instance, I've seen some people store and hang their bows in their garage, and it's like June, July, and I'm like, man, I know your garage isn't AC, you know?
That's almost like leaving your bow out in your truck. you know?
it's the worst thing, man.
So one of the techs that used to work here, the best thing you'd always say is treat your bow like a dog, not like a baby.
Okay.
So you're not gonna leave your dog in the car. You're not gonna leave a baby in the car. You're not gonna leave a baby in the garage. You're not gonna leave a dog in the garage, right? So you can get away with some stuff, but heat is the biggest thing for those strings and cables. Same thing like all the dirt and all that on the strings and cables. Making sure it's protected. If you're going on a hunt, going to the range, don't just throw your bow in the back seat with a bunch of stuff in there, because if you're riding down the road and there's something braiding against those strings, you show up at the range and it's going to be blown up in the back seat.
Yeah.
So you never know on that stuff, just protecting it.
Sometimes you can't get away from leaving it in your car for a couple hours while you're going to lunch or doing whatever. But best thing is to try to keep it inside. Try to keep it, climate controlled area. And if you start seeing, hey, I've been hitting low, and you bring your bow into me, and I can't even. I got to wear oven mitts to hold the thing. I know that you've been storing it in your car, and
Right.
And it's tough because if you have a spot that you like to shoot, and then you go to work, it makes it tough trying to figure out how to balance that. But it definitely will make things stretch out. You'll get a 70-pound bow, and you'll go check it on the scale, and hey, this thing's only 65, 66 pounds. Sometimes it makes sense. You pick it up, and it's just so dang hot. You're like, man, yeah, this thing is definitely going to be.
I swear, I
stretched
just
out.
drove from the house straight here.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure,
usually
buddy.
you get that.
Sorry.
It's like I got to put under this fan for a half an hour before I can even work on it. I'm sure you get that all the time working on trucks and
Oh,
stuff.
dude, I freaking burnt my hand today,
Yeah.
man.
So-
Got a nice
Kiss
little
it for him,
blister.
dude. Kiss it for him.
Suck
strong
the juice out.
It's my good it's like, dude, I would think of it, it's like a piece of chocolate. You know what I mean? You don't want to leave it on your truck; it's gonna melt, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like Ben said, we've seen bows come in here and they're hot. Like the wax is literally coming out of the strings.
bro, okay.
It's bad.
You're not talking about like hot, like that thing's like nice. You know?
It's real nice.
Like hot pink servings.
There you go.
know?
Yeah,
Like,
make it spicy. Spicy.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us in part 1 of bow maintenance in the off-season. Join us next week as we continue with part 2. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Bowhunting AZ podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and smash those 5 stars on iTunes or Spotify and leave a little review at the bottom. It'll really help us out. For our short films, go subscribe over on YouTube. Just search Bowhunting AZ. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at BowhuntingAZ. Good luck to everyone this season. Thank you again for listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.